Minister, dús bhfuilm gach rath a gcuí uirte mar gheall an post nua atá agatsa. Is post on a yakare, agus is post on a tábhachtach é fresh. And I wish you every best of luck in terms of the job that you have in front of you. It's a very difficult job, and it's a very important job as well. It gives an opportunity to develop a society which is prudent, which focuses on making sure that the state is sustainable into the long term, but also that money is focused on infrastructure and public services that are needed in this country. If done wrong, what can happen is a country can have its economy driven off a cliff, such as happened in the 2007 Fianna Fáil government. If it's done wrong as well, it can see public services atomised by a lack of investment, which obviously happened under Michael Noonan when he was Minister for Finance as well. One of the big issues, I think, at the start of any position is that, one, that the person has the technical competency to be able to do that particular job. People are cautious. I will say, Minister, that you don't have experience in a senior ministerial role as of yet, such as this. The second issue is the fact that it takes often a year for a senior minister to bed in to a particular department, and we know that you don't have a year to do that. And one of the real important elements of that is the ability of a minister to drive the bus rather than be a passenger on the bus. And I do think it's one of the big curses of the political system in this country that we do have a permanent government that often set the direction of the department, and we don't have ministers who are strong enough to push back against that. And I'll give you just an example of that particular issue. And it also is, I think, important in the whole issue of prudence. I personally believe that this government is one of the most wasteful governments that have existed in the history of the state. And I'll give you an example of that, and that is the National Children's Hospital, which is a monument to wastefulness in public administration. There's a number of elements to the National Children's Hospital. Obviously, Leo Varadkar promised that it would be built by 2020 for the price of €700 million, save an asteroid hitting the planet. But yet, we have the situation where now we still don't have an opening date for that particular hospital, and we have a bill of €2.25 billion still. Now, for there to be financial and fiscal prudence, there needs to be accountability. But we have an accountability-free zone here in this state around those issues. Nobody has lost their job in terms of the issue of the National Children's Hospital. Nobody's been moved sideways. Nobody's had a pay cut in any ways in terms of delivering for the state around that particular issue. There's been no accountability. And accountability is a catalyst of change. If you don't have accountability, there will be no change. And we will be cursed over and over again to wake up to these types of stories happening in the future. Now, I've done a little bit of research on that particular project. My understanding is that Robert Watt signed off on the contract that was the tender documents that was initially issued by the government in terms of that particular project. I might be wrong, and I've asked the Minister for Health that question, and the Minister for Health hasn't actually given me that information back. I think if you wanted to set a standard for accountability and for financial prudence in relation to your particular role, that you would be able to answer that question openly to us. You know, who was the Secretary General who signed off on the tender documents that allowed for the project to balloon in the manner that it did? Are we going to see a minister that actually takes responsibility for that and make sure that it doesn't happen again? Or are we going to have business as usual where nobody takes responsibility at all? The other element of this the difficulty this government has had, is the inability to get funding to the front line of the public services. We know for sure that the HSE and other departments have had massive increases in investment over the last while, but we still know that there are serious crises in terms of frontline delivery right across the public sector. I've just met with people within the childcare sector there at the moment who tell me that childcare services are closing on a weekly basis still. Yes, the government have reduced the cost of childcare, but childcare is harder to access at the moment. You know, we have a situation in hospitals currently where individuals have gone in, Aoife Johnston in Limerick University, where all she needed was the treatment for sepsis in terms of the antibiotics to deal with that. She waited 15 hours to get properly triaged to be able to get that. But because of the war zone-like situation that exists in Limerick Hospital, she wasn't given those drugs she needed to help her. And as a result, she lost her life. That there was a patient there just before her who was found dead on the floor of Limerick University Hospital. And because rigor mortis had set in, they were not able to ventilate that particular patient. And that situation, whether you like it or not, is replicated right across the hospital service delivery across the country for the lack of staff being able to work there. So I think one of the objectives that you need to have as a minister is to make sure that that funding gets to the front line in the delivery of public services. Garv Mahagat.
Thank you, Deputy. Next up are the